Hey guys, welcome to the newly timed Tuesdays for Chewing the Fat. I'm here again with Dean Kilby. Good afternoon, Dean. Today we're going to update on how I'm going on phase 4 of the protocol and what's available to eat, how to eat, and also some stuff I've seen recently on some science on food pairings and what you should and shouldn't eat together, which may be pretty interesting. Another thing that I've been doing is wearing one of these fitness watches that Dean so kindly lent to me, and now I know why. I don't know how much, I've never worn one. I don't actually wear a watch anymore, to be honest, because everything's just on your phone these days, so there's no real need. But I was interested to wear it for a while and just see, I think you gave it to me to see how I was sleeping for one, how that showed up, and just with the training I've started to incorporate as well now, for heart rate type things and all that sort of thing, and how many calories during the training session. And besides the rash it tends to give me on my arm, which is just a complete nightmare, I don't find it that accurate. And I've got mates that use them and say, nah, you got to wear a chest strap with it to tie it in with the watch. And I just can't be bothered, I'm just going to train and away I go. How did you find the accuracy of these sort of things?
Look, I don't tend to get too caught up on the accuracy of it. I think it's an awareness more than anything. I mean, that's one of the sort of more, what's the brand of it? I can't even remember the brand.
Garmin,
right? That's like a $500 gadget. I wore it for a bit because I didn't wear a watch for I can't remember the last time I wore a watch. I think it was 2000 or something. So yeah. 2001, almost 20 years I haven't worn a watch. And the only time I used to wear a watch, it was useful in the laboratory, when you're timing experiments, and, it was good just to have that timer on your wrist, but I hated it. And so I didn't wear a watch for ages. And then for some reason, I wanted a gadget, wanted to waste some money, bought that thing, wore it for a little bit. And then, it was good to have a kind of general awareness. Okay, how many calories am I actually burning throughout the day? So what would be an isocaloric diet for me? So how many calories would I need to consume to fuel my activity levels? And, it's good, particularly I wanted to get a grasp of what it looks and feels like to keep your heart rate below 70% of maximal heart rate. Because you don't want to go above 70% of maximal heart rate when you're on a carbohydrate restricted dietary protocol. Okay. Otherwise, if you increase your energy expenditure too much, you create some metabolic confusion. Your body might start breaking down some of the muscle, and we really don't want that. Right. So I think it's useful in that regard. Also, just to keep track of sleep. If people want to impact their health, you want to do somewhat of a reset, not a full reset, but you want to have some impact. There's like a handful of key things that you could just do or not do for a period of time to help correct things. One would be stop eating so many grains, flour and bread and pasta and all that sort of stuff. Stop eating or consuming dairy products for a period of time. Just the inflammatory nature of that. Increase your water intake. Stop taking your phone to bed, right? These people are just staring at their phones nonstop, and the blue light impacts the brain chemistry, melatonin, etc., and that keeps people awake, and then you can't sleep. Like I notice, when I have my phone nearby and I wake up at some point during the night, I'll just look at the phone to see how tired I should feel. You want to look at the time. So it's like, how tired should I feel? But once you look at the bloody thing, then you're like wide awake. You can't get to sleep. And the other thing, when you're trying to get to sleep, as the sun goes down and it gets darker and melatonin is released. And one of the things that melatonin does is it starts to cool your body temperature down a little bit. And this is all in preparation for you having, going to bed and having a restful night. So you don't want to do things that stimulate your brain. You also don't want to fuel the fire back up as your body's trying to cool down. In other words, stop eating late at night. You do that, you fire things up again in your digestive system. So the other bad thing about looking at your phone late at night is you want to feel safe when you're trying to sleep. So not only do you need a cooler room, but the weight of a doona, for example, over the top of you, it's kind of like makes you feel safe. If you're looking at the world's problems coming at you through that little device on social media, and you're getting pissed off at people and groups, and you're just frustrated and annoyed and despondent and jaded and all of that sort of stuff because of the world's issues that you seemingly can't do anything about, that's not a safe environment for your brain. So it makes it more difficult for people to sleep as well. So monitoring sleep, getting a good amount of sleep at night is absolutely critical. I mean, the last one, the obvious one, is stop eating so much goddamn sugar. That's one of the reasons why I created Simpler Health, was to impact the obesity epidemic and the rising rate of type 2 diabetes and cardiometabolic issues that that this country is plagued by, Western society, and now in particular developing countries, because there's a Coca-Cola vending machine in every bloody school. They get the kids hooked on the crack early, and it's under the guise of, but we're donating funds to help support children's education. It's like, no, you're creating lifelong customers.
Yeah.
So
exactly right.
Anyway, that's those 5 things. If people did them, that would make an enormous difference. But obviously sleep is critical, man. When I don't get enough sleep, everything changes. You're just not as productive. You're not present with people. You're more easily irritated by your kids, or you're just frustrated by any little thing. And that's just not enjoyable. You don't get as much done. So then you're carrying more and more and more, and it accumulates into the next day, the next day, the next week, the next year. And then life it turns into this, I'll get onto it one day. When I get time to work on X, Y, or Z, or I've got to get back to finishing that thing. And it's like, you're constantly living in the past, as all these unfulfilled tasks accumulate. So yeah, big impact, sleep. So yeah, I gave you that device, one, because it was pissing me off, and I thought, bugger it, I'll give it to Trevor for a while to wear. But I was interested in what was happening with your REM and deep sleep, and because you said you were waking up way more refreshed in the morning and way more productive. And
I was, but I was waking up more to go to the toilet too. So, like on the surface, if you'd have asked me before I started, I would have told you I slept way better beforehand because I wasn't getting up to go to the toilet. But yeah, I mean, I found it useful for the training side, I'll look my heart rates at whatever, and I'm burning this many calories. But sometimes you'd think it's pretty close. A couple of times I've checked it, that's way off, and run my finger underneath it and do whatever. And there's those sort of things. I just can't be bothered, really. Or stuff to worry about, It's like
some of the world's greatest athletes wear that very watch, but I'm
not one of the world's greatest athletes, do.
Anyway, it'll be useful for many.
Yeah. I mean, if you're into that sort of thing, one of my mates is, and he wears the chest vest and the strap on, thing, and looks at his heart and knows when he's at maximal heart rate and gets an alert and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, that's great.
I mean, wearable technology is amazing these days. You got all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff that you can put on, and even these I'm kind of investigating this technology, EMS suits. I don't know if you've heard of them. These suits, you wear them and it increases the intensity, supposedly, the contractile activity of your muscles, like 5 to 10 fold or something. So you can do supposedly an hour long workout in 20 minutes. Now, what's the practical use of that in terms of what most people are committed to? I don't really know. I haven't worked out where it could fit in with what I provide. I think it's interesting. I think exercise physiologists and occupational therapists would be able to put it to great use when they're rehabilitating patients after injuries and traumas and so forth, surgeries, etc. But I don't know yet. I'm on the fence with regards to that. There's other great technologies that people use to even brain activity. I wore this thing, this was a few years ago, that measured your alpha waves in your brain and can give an indication of mindfulness, whatever the heck that is.
Wow.
Mindfulness. Everyone's obsessed. I hear about it. It's like mindfulness. I'm like, but if your mind's full, how productive and free could you be? I don't want a full mind. Mindfulness. I think they mean like an awareness or something. Anyway, I put this thing on and did this test, right? And they challenge your brain. They create all this activity. And then there's like, how quickly can you put yourself into a state of mindfulness? And then they try and interrupt your brain. It's like you have to practice keeping yourself in that kind of calm state. So anyway, the woman who put it on me, she'd never seen anyone get into a state of mindfulness in less than 3 seconds or whatever it was, which I did. And then none of the challenges rocked me from that. So she thought I was like some Zen Buddhist monk or something that...
You thought that when you walked in.
Little did she know I was just hungover and just really tired. I was in a zombie state.
That's what they mean by mindfulness.
I think so. I don't know.
You were mindful of how much you drank last night because of how you were feeling.
So I think there's going to be a huge place for wearable technology in the not too distant future. You know, people are going to be able to track all kinds of biological parameters, biometric measurements, and then just send stuff it'll make the physician's job a hell of a lot easier to monitor in real time what's happening with people when they're not in front of them. You know, it's a difficult thing from a medical practitioner to any kind of coach or some kind of anyone that's got a commitment to working with people over a period of time. The difficulty is you can't be there with them whilst they're playing the game of their own life. So like as a health coach, for example, I feel like, you know, I'm kind of locked in the locker room and I don't get to watch the game. And then I'm very reliant on the integrity and authenticity of the person I'm coaching to, at halftime, for example, come into the locker room and update me on what's actually happening in the game, you know? And not just like, oh no, it's going great, we're doing really good. What's the scoreboard say? And they're down 10 points. Yeah. Like they're freaking losing, but they're like, oh no, it's going really great. It's like, you're not in reality. So I think technology plays a huge part in being able to monitor people's performance in reality, actions and non-actions versus their thoughts, feelings, assessments, judgments, opinions. Because, you know, when you're the one that's in the middle of life, it's hard to have an objective view. So to bring a level of objectivity to what's typically subjective, it's you know, your personal experience of life, it could be extraordinarily powerful.
Yeah, for sure.
We just got to get the user experience right. I've never worn an Apple Watch. Maybe it can
more down to the user than the user experience.
Maybe. I don't know, but maybe some people with Apple Watches or whatever might offer some feedback for us, and you know what
my
they found useful.
My mate's got both.
Yeah.
He's used them both, and they're both, you know. So, but again, he said, I would never use just the watch on its own. It's good apparently for if you're running, because it keeps a really good measure of how many steps you're taking and all that sort of thing. But as far as a heart rate monitor and that sort of thing goes, it's up and down. Sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not, but the chest strap is on the money every time.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just, that side of the stuff doesn't interest me. It's just more, my heart's beating at 150, whether that watch tells me or not.
But look, in terms of brain health and that's a real commitment for me, because look, dementia will be, it's already one of the leading causes of death, and earlier onset of dementia is more and more prevalent these days. And I think it's one of the most feared aspects of aging, is losing, your memory and your sense of yourself and all of that. And particularly if we see if you've unfortunately been witness to the burden of dementia on people around those who are suffering, everyone's suffering. It's terrible. So dementia has overtaken stroke as a leading cause of death. It's second only to heart disease and well, maybe there's heart disease, cancer, and dementia, right? The three leading causes. So it's a big issue. And in terms of brain health, obviously what's good for the heart is also good for the brain. Simpler Health, I've put together an expert panel of clinical experts and scientific experts. And, I've got a neurosurgeon in my clinical team. I've got a neurobiologist, a leading neuroscientist. She's about to, she'll have a book released called Biohacking Your Brain, or something to that effect. That'll be released towards the end of this year. Kristen Willemere, she's based in Los Angeles, and she's done some amazing things around potentially how to reverse some of the damage done in brains from trauma, and especially these subconcussive knocks that athletes experience in not just contact sports, but collision sports like the NFL and so forth. So, and then Joe Maroon, who's a famous neurosurgeon, he's currently looking at my offerings, and he's very fascinated with my approach. And he's already said that he'd be more than willing to lend his name to what I'm doing. So this is really exciting, I think, in terms of not just cardiometabolic health, but how do you manage your energy systems and food intake in a way that better promotes brain health. And the best way to assess, how good is your brain is how you wake up in the morning. Do you feel refreshed? Are you more productive before 10 a.m.? Are you able to retain, information and be just present with people? And, you'll die whenever you die, but whatever time you've got left, it may as well be productive and enjoyable. Not when you've got brain fog and you're heavy and lethargic and tired and all this sort of stuff. It's like life sucks when that happens, and everyone's just like your enemy, because it doesn't matter what comes at you, it pisses you off because you're already at a limit. When your reserves are low and your capacity is already met, it's like you can't provide much for anyone else, and you're just in that world of survival. So, if we can free people up, at least with regards to their health, then that could make an enormous difference to everything else that they're committed to in life.
Something you said then just reminded me of something that happened during the week that I noticed. One of the things I'd get on my hands and feet a lot was like I don't know if you'd call it eczema, but they were like little water bubbles that would come up on my fingers. And when I was in Malaysia a few years ago, that actually, because it's really hot and humid there, it was actually all over my hands. I had to go to the doctor over there and get some cream for it and stuff. It was like all over the place. And they'd come up on my feet as well. It'd be really itchy, and I'd be biting them all the time to get the water out of them and rub. Since I've been on protocol, I have not had that at all. Not once. And tinea, funnily enough.
Before you go to fungal infections on your feet, let's talk about you call them warts. They're probably calluses from masturbation.
No, I didn't call them warts. I did not say that. And you can't catch warts from masturbation, so that can't be either.
It depends who you're masturbating.
I'm not talking Dutch rudders or anything like that. I'm just...
Oh my God. Sexual health is important, everyone.
Yes. But yeah, I just noticed the other day, and Lan said, "Oh, wait till it's summer in your hair." But I'm generally pretty sweaty anyway, especially in my hands.
Right.
But yeah, just I haven't. The closest I can go, I've been to the doctors and they just give me steroid cream sort of things to cortisol things to put on my fingers and stuff, and it just dries my hands out. Something shocking.
Yeah.
They peel.
No, I had God, it wasn't even that long ago. My hands were so itchy, and I put some steroid cream on it, just like 0.5%.
Yeah.
Right, the hydrocortisol, and put it on, and then within days, my hands dried up, and the skin starts peeling. I'm like, oh my God, I'm falling apart.
Exactly.
And anyway, that heals up, and then my hands start itching again. And I'm getting annoyed. I'm like, oh my God. My daughter, 7 years of age, she's now 8, but when she was 7, she goes, "What's the matter, Daddy?" And I said, "Oh, my hands are itching. It's really annoying me. They're getting red." She goes, "Put some apple cider vinegar on your hands, Dad." And I'm like, I was desperate. So I put some apple cider vinegar, rub it in, gone, fixed my, it just stopped itching.
No way.
I know, right? I don't know if it's the butyrates in it, or it was just the pH. Who knows? Who knows? So sometimes I asked, where did you think of that from? And her nono told her about it once, or may have mentioned it to someone else and she was eavesdropping. I don't know. So, these things that we can learn a lot from. There are simple remedies from our great grandparents and grandparents and stuff that they used to do, particularly before the antibiotic era.
Yeah.
There was a lot that we could learn. And here's the thing that people have to be responsible for is things take time, and you've got to persist, and you've got to be patient. You've got to be responsible, and even, reversing whatever it is that's going on in your body, it takes time for that tissue to repair and regenerate, and for things to reset and calm down. So, I don't know about those things on your hands. I'll ask.
The closest thing I could get was I was in a chemist in Queensland. I was on the Gold Coast, and I started to come up again. And I went there, and I said, have you seen, do other people get this thing? He goes, yeah, I get it sometimes. I said, what do you reckon it is? Because I said, the doctors go, I don't know, just put this on it and it'll dry it out. And he goes, I reckon it's sugar. Well, that's interesting. And obviously, I've been on minimal amounts of sugar, so maybe he was onto something. But we'll see in summer.
It's amazing, the protocol that we had you on and you're still on, just the regenerative capacity of the body when you fuel it properly.
Yeah.
Look, you've got better lighting now at the moment, but your skin looks amazing. It looks just less inflamed. And I see this consistently with all my clients. They come and see me and their skin just looks stunning. Everything, all the redness disappears. Their eyes look brighter. Not only the shape of their face changes, but they just look brighter, and this, everything starts to rejuvenate, talk a lot about sex, but even sexual function, not just in terms of vascular health and men, the ability to get an erection and sustain an erection and so forth, but women's vaginas start lubricating properly again. Everything starts normalizing. It's incredible. So there's a combination, there's like 11 or 12 things that, I'm responsible for in altering that contribute to the improvements in the health outcomes, but we make it as simple as possible, for people to be able to follow. And, we've cut the sugar out, that glucose toxicity. inflammation decreases enormously. Your body knows now how to fuel itself properly, primarily burning fat, and not just relying on carbohydrates to fuel itself. So your immune system reset and regenerated. Everything got cleaned out. I mean, you lost a lot of that fat and all the toxins that get stored in your fat. So if you think of your fat tissue like that room in your house where you just store crap that you don't want to have to deal with, or the garage or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Your fat tissue is like that. And if you accumulate a lot of toxins and fat soluble toxins, your body can't deal with it all at once. So it just stores it in the fat tissue. And, all of that got cleaned out and,
cool.
Amazing.
Well, on speaking of that, so I'm on phase 4 at the moment. I think we've spoken a little bit about it when I first transitioned into that. And I've learned a lot about what I should eat with what other foods and what foods I shouldn't eat together. Do you want to explain a bit about how that works and what I can and not can and can't do? I can do anything I like, really. What's advised and what's not advised and why?
I think in the macronutrient arena, so when we talk about macronutrients, fats, carbohydrates, protein, right, the 3 main macronutrients. So obviously what really wreaks havoc on your pancreas and your metabolic system is this combination of carbohydrates and fat. So if you eat carbs and fat together, you'll get fat. I mean, the carbs, particularly if it's sugar and refined carbohydrates, that stimulates your insulin release. Insulin's this hormone that causes fat deposition. So if you're eating fat at the same time, then it's a perfect storm to gain weight. So in phase 4 of the protocol where you're at, we try and separate your carbohydrates and fat. I don't want you eating those combinations. Breakfast time is okay. People don't tend to overconsume at breakfast time, but certainly at lunch and dinner, we want to separate your carbs and fat. So, at the macronutrient level, that's a combination to be responsible for. What else? And then there's other things like what increases the bioavailability of certain nutrients. And there's a lot of science being released constantly and has been for the past 15 years, thereabouts, in the field of nutrigenomics. And this is how nutrients can affect our gene expression. Now, for those nutrients, those molecules that we consume to have an impact on our cellular function, it has to be available to our cells and tissues. So we call that bioavailability. And there's different combinations of foods that can increase that.
Isn't that what the NutriBullet's for? Doesn't to what it says, unlock the nutrients in your vegetables. I thought my mouth did that, but anyway. But it is interesting because, like we were talking before, I said I saw something recently about some of the pairings of food they'd found that were advantageous to have together because of the ability to unlock more of that beneficial nutrient in each one. Like they said, salmon and red wine, because the compounds and the alcohol in the red wine would interact with the salmon and have the omega-3s more available to digest and absorb, which was interesting.
And the other way around as well. I don't know that much about what can improve absorption of omega-3s. I mean, omega-3 fats are, they're pretty well absorbed on their own, right? But we do have an under intake. Well, let me go the other way. We overconsume the wrong kinds of fatty acids. So the ratios of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids are just so way out of whack. So, decreasing your total fat intake and restoring omega-3 constitution of your cell membranes by consuming fish oils and stuff like that can make a big difference, particularly in those who are metabolically deranged, right? So, which is most people. If you're fat, you're metabolically deranged. If you're wondering what I'm referring to, that's you. So, but But it works the other way around. So the anti-aging properties in wine, those polyphenol antioxidants, the most famous of which is resveratrol, but some people may have heard of quercetin. Quercetin is a polyphenol antioxidant found in onions and apple skins and wine, right? And there's a number of other, fisetin and epicatechins and all these types of things. There's a cocktail of 500 plus polyphenol antioxidants in grape skins that get released during fermentation. So during fermentation, when there's ethanol, the ethanol helps liberate the polyphenol antioxidants from the grape skins. So they're more soluble in ethanol versus water. So that's why in the context of wine, those molecules are more absorbable into our system versus taking resveratrol supplements in a capsule form, for example.
Right.
Now, if you go back and you look at in 2006 when David Sinclair published in Cell this study of rodents and got them obese by feeding them a high calorie diet, a high fat fed diet, and he gave one group resveratrol, that group lived a normal life length. The other fat rats died from obesity related diseases earlier than their typical healthy life length, right? Now, what people always forget is the resveratrol was administered in the context of a high-fat diet. So the fat increases the bioavailability of the resveratrol.
Right.
So what does this look like in practical reality for human beings? Well, wine and cheese. So the fat from the cheese and the anti-aging properties of the wine. Right, so that combination.
Salmon and cheese, the salmon and wine as well.
Exactly. So the fat from the salmon would help with the absorption of those in the wine. Yeah. Those antioxidants in the wine. So yeah, and then there's other things like turmeric and pepper. That combination's supposed. I don't know about the data. I mean,
that was one of them. I'm pretty sure that was one of them. It was cayenne and turmeric or something.
Yeah. So that's supposed to help with the bioavailability of the curcumin, but I don't know. In human practicality, I don't know about the data around that. But it makes sense in theory. All these kind of things. I think we could learn more from the wisdom of ancient, maybe not so ancient, but just there's a reason why recipes are created the way that they're created. When you look back maybe 100 years ago, certain recipes and ways in which people ate was on point, and there was a purpose to it. These days, particularly with when people migrate to different countries, what they hold on to are the foods from their culture. But they don't hold on to the foods that they don't like, that their mothers or grandmothers made them eat. They hold on to the foods that they loved eating the most. And these are often celebratory foods that you would only eat at parties.
Well, right? they're the foods that you want to show your friends too and say, look at this.
Exactly.
If you're from Poland, you don't want to turn up with a plate of boiled cabbage and go, hey.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the Italians don't eat a big bowl of carbonara every day. Their pasta is like, a little bit as an entree, and then the main course is like the veal and the vegetables or soups and they don't eat all of it at once like you do at a party or a big proper dinner. And we think, this is the Mediterranean style of eating. No, they don't eat that much. They eat a lot of plant matter, a lot of, fresh produce, locally sourced. There's no organophosphates in the foods, and there's all this sort of stuff to take responsibility for. But also, when you're recreating dishes from your heritage, you take the bits that taste great and all the little bits and pieces you think, you can do away with that. Do away with that ingredient. Do away with that spice, that herb. You don't need that vegetable in. You just So then it doesn't have the essence, the healthful essence that it originally once had. And then you end up with just mac and cheese.
That's what's great about a lot of the Asian, well, not so much Chinese, I suppose, because I don't know how much of China actually eats Chinese that we can buy here. But certainly,
do Chinese people eat Chinese food?
Not from here. They don't. I don't know how many lambs are in China to have Mongolian lamb. I don't know.
It's like when a Chinaman says, "What's fried rice?" What?
Dude, I've got a totally different topic. I've got to send you a video of a Chinese guy reviewing an English cooking show of how to make boiled.
I saw that. It's hilarious.
It's the best.
He's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, but
straining the rice.
It's especially, you know, because I'm in a Vietnamese family. It's like they're very authentic to what they ate from home. It's like they don't care if you like it or not. This is Vietnamese and this is the way we eat it. So along that side of things, it's very, you know, I can't think of anything that Lan said, "Oh, we don't put that in it anymore." It's like, nah, this is, they're really proud of, this is how we do it, and you won't like it because it's got this in it. It's really interesting. But
and also a lot of these you know, cultures and particularly in Asia, they don't waste anything, right? So you eat everything and every part of the animal gets consumed, right? Yeah. So none of it gets wasted. Whereas we just eat the muscle flesh, the skeletal muscle, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. And we try and, you know, Wagyu steak is sort of with all that fat, and you can't eat too much of that. Come on. But, you know, but if you're just eating the animal protein and from the skeletal muscle, then, you know, that's got a limited capacity there to provide your body what it needs. And I'm not saying I'm a huge advocate of the sort of, what do they call it? The carnivore diet, but I've read a bit, and, you know, there's the advocate in the US, a doctor by the name of Paul Saladino, which is interesting that his last name is Saladino. And he's the advocate of the carnivore diet. So, but it's eating animals nose to tail. And you got to develop a palate for offal meat. And, you know, people don't eat offal meat like a lot of other Asian cultures do. And different parts of the animal where you get the collagen and the connective tissue and slow cooking techniques.
I love it.
Yeah, and they love the texture, but it's you know, prepared with different types of ingredients that bring out certain health attributes of those food products. And some of it's just downright bad for you. But, you know, if you go back far enough, you'll find some recipes that are mostly, you know, there's a reason why these recipes were developed that way. I'm more of an advocate of the Mediterranean diet, where that's where more of the scientific literature exists. However, if you read some of Paul Saladino's work and his logic and the scientific rationale behind his approaches, it kind of makes sense. I just can't see myself eating that much offal, and some of which you don't cook it. You got to eat it raw, because that's where it offers the most amount of nutritional value. And it's like, I can't do that.
I couldn't do it since I was a kid. When I was a kid, I had real texture issues with food, like porridge. It made me gag.
Really?
Yeah. Not because I didn't like the taste of it. It was the texture of it that just. But we were on a trip once out to Dubbo with my family, and we went to lots of places, but that was one of them. And we woke up in the morning and went to the local cafe or whatever, and my dad and my brother were so excited that they could have, you know, real fair income lamb's fry and bacon. And I didn't really know what it was. And I just, you know, my brother and dad are having it. Yeah, give me a mouthful. And I chewed that for 20 minutes until my mum looked at me at some stage and said, "Spit it out." Oh. And my dad went, "Are you still chewing that?" I went, "Yeah, just can't get it down." Sorry, nah. It's just wrong. And same, you know, when you go to Yumcho and Cabramatta and stuff like that with my family and stuff, they'd bring around this thing that we used to call, if I brought a mate with it, we'd call it bowl in a bowl. And it was just all sorts of heart and kidneys and all sorts of crap. Oh, some of my mates used to devour half the bowl. It was insane, but I just can't.
You know, the Scottish have haggis.
Yeah, I just can't. The
And
texture of it's just, oh.
growing up, my dad used to cook up, what's it called? Black pudding. And it was so salty, and I used to enjoy it. It was like, you don't have much of it, and until I realized what it was. And then it's not that I was like, no, I'm not eating that. I just a little bit didn't enjoy it as much, you know, then I was steered away from it. I used to cook up a whole bunch of stuff like that.
I'll eat most.
Now, mind you, he wasn't a well man, and he died from cancer at 65. So eat your vegetables.
Good option. Eat veggies. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Might leave it there, eh? Good to talk to you.
Very good. Yeah.
We'll catch up again next Tuesday. And any questions, anything you guys want to hear about, just shoot us a message and say we want to hear you about.
But I think going back to those 5 things that I said earlier: eat less sugar, eliminate grains, dairy, stop taking your phone to bed, and drink more water. The National Institutes of Health for men recommends 3.7 litres of water a day. Women, 2.7 litres of water a day. Just those 5 things could make an enormous difference. If you need more help, just reach out.
Cool. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
Bye.